So welcome to our workshop. We're very excited to have this international workshop. It's a part of the vision of our Bioethics and Law Center. And I'll just try to give a brief idea of why it is that we're holding this specific meeting and this specific topic. So looking back, we might see the change in the way we think about what we may be able to do with genetics. So a lot has happened since the book Brave New World, and maybe many things that were looked at as a theory, concepts for the future that might happen are now not just theory. And genetics have evolved, and also ethics have evolved, and we have what we call gen ethics. That's basically looking at the ethics of genomics, and various topics of reproduction and other matters are now debated and discussed in this field. And things that were perhaps science fiction in the past are becoming scientific facts. And the idea would be that genetics might be related to our behavior, to who we are. These are matters that have a lot of philosophical implications. They refer to who we are and how we view ourselves. And these, of course, are basis for a lot of debate and discussion. And all these are related to the data that we use to extrapolate some of those concepts and ideas. As you can see, everything I'm showing here, you can link, there's like a short link to it. It's very important, so you can find the pictures. You don't need to take a picture now if you want. So looking at the last week in Tel Aviv University, we've had 3 different meetings, all focusing on different aspects of privacy, starting with a general overview of privacy, and that was the meeting that was actually arranged, organized by Professor Birnach from, Michael Birnach, who's going to talk soon in this meeting, celebrating a new issue, basically a collection of articles discussing or debating what's going to be with privacy, the right to privacy. Is it still relevant, and in what ways? And following on that magnificent meeting, we had a smaller meeting of the Medicine and Humanities Colloquium by the Biomed at Tau research hubs with the Bioethics and Law Center involved. And my talk there was about medical ethics in the digital age. And guess what? Privacy was a major concern in this talk, because privacy is a major concern nowadays. And today we're looking at a specific issue of medical ethics in nowadays, which is privacy in genomics. So it seems that we're very worried about what privacy might mean, and how can we try to protect it in a way, but also do it in a way that is not infringing on advancement of science and so on. So genetic data may be used in various ways, and we're going to discuss some of those ways later today. It could be used, for instance, for profiling. Could maybe see the ethnicity of a person, or their sex, or other elements and traits. We may establish paternity and family connections, and if you look over the news, you'll see a lot of stories already of people using 23andMe or other kind of genetic tests to find their history, to find maybe outrageous things that happened some years ago, maybe swapping of babies, maybe other things. And so it's, the implications might be dramatic. It is used for identification of criminal offenses, or people who have perpetrators of crimes or victims of crimes. And it can be used to identify personal traits and medico-genetic risks, and those become more and more prevalent, and we seem to know so little right now, but still it's so much more than we knew 10 years ago. So that creates a lot of ethical questions, but we're going to focus about privacy of the data that might be used to get to all of these elements. And so how can genetic data be manifested or disclosed? What kind of data? Where can it be stored? How should we be thinking about protecting it? So it could be collected for, forgot what it means, but in tests that are done before the pregnancy, or before non-invasive pregnancy tests, and the data is genetic data. It could be used for various purposes. It could be held in biobanks, whether they're private or national. It could be collected for a personal genome project. It's a concept in Harvard and other places where people are giving away their full genetic sequence to be used for research and so on, maybe giving away some of their privacy for the better of society in a way. It could be used for commercial testing, whether it is partial genomic testing like 23andMe or full genomic sequence like Veritas. And I've checked, the prices are not that high. You can do it for $1,000, some say $200. So it's becoming accessible to many, not to all. And the question is, so we can do so much with genetics. Maybe we should put privacy aside and look at other things like saving lives, improving the future of humanity, creating a post-humanity kind of era where everyone is better, nicer, smarter, and kind to each other. And it seems that this worries a lot of people dealing with privacy. And the Information Commissioner in the UK, and I assume Professor Bernack will share with us what those mean, commissioners of information and privacy protectors, saying after they discovered that more than 1.5 million pieces of genetic information of different people were disclosed to a company to see potential risks of a specific disease in those people, that this invasion of privacy is not necessary. There's no doubt, she says, that there's huge potential for creative use of data. It could have a potential on patient care and clinical improvements, but the price of innovation does not need to be the erosion of fundamental privacy rights, she says. And I think, speaking about privacy, so the major question has always been, or has been in the past few years, maybe it's too late to talk about protecting privacy. There is no privacy anymore. The horse has ran out of the stable, and now we are trying to lock the stable. Well, I don't think that's necessarily true, and maybe one horse is out, but there are so many other horses we don't even know of. They're genetically bred now. So one idea is to have people more informed about what it means to collect genetic data, what can be done with it. And I kind of recommend a really nice online course by Professor Robert Swijnenberg. I attended it in the past days, and I really think it's wonderful. And it's a MOOC, open course, massive online open course. And basically, it's discussing genetic privacy. There are a lot of questions that you're asked when you start the course, and then you think about what it means to you and why you're doing this course and so on. I really highly recommend it. And I think today we are going to talk about privacy, but also about policy that relates to privacy. And I think that we should have an informed policy so that we have an acceptable future in this regard. I want to quote Winston Churchill when he needed to decide, or together with his parliament, whether to rebuild the Parliament House exactly as it was before it was bombed in the war, or maybe design it differently. He said, you know, we shape our buildings, thereafter they shape us. And I think if we are not thinking about privacy policy today in matters that relates to genetics, we might think about it in 20 years and think, hey, where were we 20 years ago before this horrific whatever thing happened, because we didn't think about it before. These are my 2 cents about what we should think about. And it's the same kind of concepts I shared when talking about generally medical ethics in the digital era, because I think these are major today. And I think privacy, with all it means, is one concern that we have to focus on. We also need to think about transparency, and it's kind of related to privacy. We are actually recording this meeting. Only those lectures that the people presenting will agree will be posted online. It's a part of what we think sharing knowledge with the people about what genetic privacy means I think is a goal that is worth promoting. Preventing misuse of the information, of course, thinking about social benefits, fairness, inclusion, and equity. So if it only costs $1,000, then a lot of people are not going to be able to enjoy that genetic sequencing, for instance. Responsibility and liability, so that who is in charge or who is responsible for the fact that somebody used genetic data in some strange way to find out something about me. Maybe nobody's responsible. Maybe the people holding the data, those collecting it, or whomever it is, we need to think about liability. And I think coming from the concept of ethics, of traits, of Torat HaMidot, we're thinking of virtue ethics. I think the major concept should be trustworthiness. It's trustworthiness of the genetic counselor, of the medical doctor, of the genetic nurse, of those companies that are doing those tests, whether they're for non-profit or for profit. I think trustworthiness is key in all that. So as we need to start exactly at this point of time, I would like to thank the Department of Nursing, of which I'm a part, who are supporting this day tremendously. This is also the Nurses Week in Israel, so congratulations. And I would like to thank the Faculty of Medicine for supporting our center in progress. I want to thank the Biomed at Tau Research Hubs for supporting this event and others. And I'd like to thank my colleagues at the center, Professor Michael Bar-Ilan. Thank you for supporting and actually building together this, I think, wonderful program. Dr. Shlomit Zuckerman, thank you so much, and all the speakers coming here. And as time is of the essence, let us begin.